How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chavdal, Daf 24 of Masechta Sotah. Friends. Well, today we start the fourth parak of Masechta Sotah, and So we talk about different people who don't drink the bitter waters of the Sotah. Okay, we're going to start Daf Chav Gimel Mebezet, the Mishnah at the beginning of the fourth parak. Arusa v'shemeres yovim. Ho. A woman who is engaged, or a shemeres yavam, which of course we know, we learn Masechta Yevamis. I guess the good thing about learning Masechta Yevamis is that we've learned Masechta Yevamis. So now if things come up from Masechta Yevamis, it's like, oh yeah, we learned Masechta Yevamis. I know what a shemeres yavam is. You could tell me what's a shemeres yavam, no? So shemeres yavam, the mice says, oh my gosh, no. Reuven married to Sarah. Reuven dies. Sarah now needs to marry Shimon. Until they do Yibum, she's a shemeres yavam. That wasn't so hard. Okay, so Arusa v'shemeres yavam, lo shoses v'lo nodlis ksuba. So they don't drink the bitter waters. That's what we'll call them Sotah. We'll call them the bitter waters. They don't drink the bitter waters, and they also don't receive their ksuba. So meaning, if he warned his Arusa or shemeres yavam, hey, don't be with so and so, the whole Sotah thing, but it's not his wife, it's an Arusa or a shemeres yavam. Shnema, as the pasuk says, Asher tista isha tachas isha pad la Arusa v'shemeres yavam. So it says that if a woman, this whole Sotah thing happens with her husband, to the exclusion of an Arusa or a shemeres yavam, where they aren't actually married. All right, fine. Put it right in Arusa and shemeres yavam, they haven't yet had nisun. Fine. So if you have a widow married to a kohen gadol, or a grusha v'achlutza to kohen hedjit, these are relationships that are not allowed. Mamzeres v'nesin of the Yisrael, v'as Yisrael l'nosin l'mamzer l'nosin, lo shosus l'notos ksuba. So in those cases, there's no bitter waters, and she also would not receive her ksuba payment. The following people do not drink the bitter waters and do not receive ksuba payment. If she says, look, I admit I had an affair, she tmea, or if witnesses came and testified that she had an affair, and if she says, look, I ain't doing this, I'm not drinking this stuff, I'm not into bitter. Anyways, so in all of these cases, so she won't drink the bitter waters, and but she also doesn't get her ksuba payment. Omer baila eni mashka. If the husband says, look, I'm not interested, I'm not going to take my wife to the Beis Hamikdash and do this whole thing, okay, so they can't remain together, but at the same time he's going to have to pay her ksuba because it's coming from him, not from her. Or if he slept with her on the way, she doesn't drink because the waters won't work anyways, because if he's not clean, right? Bisman sha'ish, what was it? Bisman sha'ish menuka me'avon, right? He has to also be clean, and here he's not clean, right? He slept with his wife on the way, which he wasn't allowed to do. So nodlos ksuba v'lo shosos. So in these cases, they don't drink the bitter waters, but they do receive their ksuba payment. Mesu bailein ad shelo shosu. If the husband died before she drank the bitter waters, so then she won't drink the bitter waters because he has to be alive. So Bishami nodlos ksuba v'lo shosos. So Bishami says they don't drink the bitter waters, but they do receive their ksuba, right? He's dead, and she receives her ksuba. Beisil omim o shosis o lo nodlos ksubasin. So Beisil says no. If you're not going to drink the waters, then you can't get your ksuba. So therefore, enochinami, she's not drinking the bitter waters because the husband died, but she can't. She's not going to drink the water. She doesn't get her ksuba. So if you have a woman who's pregnant or nursing, and she gets divorced or becomes a widow, so for 2 years she can't get remarried. And then but if a fellow marries her during those 2 years when he wasn't supposed to, and then meaning until the child stops nursing, and then if he did marry her anyways, even though he wasn't supposed to, and then he does kinoi and stira, so in that case, lo shosos lo nodlos ksuba tivra meir. So Meir says she doesn't drink the bitter waters, and she does not receive her ksuba. V'chachamom yochli hu la'afrisha ulachzir la'achar zman. So whereas the chachamim say no, she can drink the bitter waters and receive her ksuba, because after all, she's not inherently asura to him. She's temporarily, asura while she's, got to wait these 2 years. But because you can just kind of like, over after time, they will be permitted to get married. So I guess she does drink the stuff. Okay, fine, great. Where am I? Ilonis, vizikena v'sheni related. If you have a woman who's ilonis, right, she's unable, right, she's she like doesn't actually mature and become a woman and be able to have children. Vizikena, or if she is no longer able, she's at an age where she can no longer conceive. V'sheni related, or if she drinks some kind of potion that makes her unconceivable. So if you have a fellow who doesn't have any children yet, so you can't be married to this person because the point is to have children, so therefore, so because he's not supposed to be married to this person, so then lo notos ksuba v'lo shosos, they don't drink the bitter waters and they don't receive their ksuba. Eliezer Omer, Yachol hu lisa isha acheres v'lifros v'limena. Says Rabbi Eliezer, well, there isn't necessarily a problem with being married to them, as long, right, you can marry another woman to have children with and be married to this other person. And therefore, I guess they can drink the bitter waters. But with regard to everybody else, look, either you drink the standard practice is you drink the bitter waters, or you don't get your ksuba. Eishes kohen shoysa muteris levaila, the wife of a kohen. So the wife of a kohen, so then she drinks the bitter waters, and as long as she survives, she's permitted to her husband. Oh, the interesting other nafkamina. Oh, that's interesting. We saw yesterday Reb Shimon's. That's actually very interesting. That's extremely interesting. Yesterday, Reb Shimon's opinion was that his reason, his rationale for saying that zchus is not tole is because then people won't. Right? She might survive the bitter waters. But still, people will say that, well, maybe she had an affair, but just she did some good stuff, so therefore, it's taken time to kick in. But what about this? If she had an affair, she's not allowed to be with her husband anymore. And if she drinks the waters and survives, but zchus is tole, but then she's going to remain with her husband because she survived, and you can't assume that don't you still have to be concerned that she had an affair? If you say zchus tole, zaka, they remain together. Interesting. But anyways, we're saying here, in general here, either you drink the water or you don't get your ksuba. I guess the point being, if you drink the water and survive, so then we assume that she did not have an affair. Eishes kohen shoysa muteris levaila. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, right. We already just read this, right? So the wife of a kohen, she drinks that's probably how I thought about it, right? Is that because, any couple, regardless of if they're a kohen or not, if the wife willingly has an affair, they can't remain together. But anyways, so she drinks the Sotah, and then if she survives, she's permitted to remain with her husband, the kohen. The Gemara is going to ask, isn't that obvious? I mean, she didn't. If she didn't have an affair, she didn't have an affair. Isha Soris Shosa. So the wife of a castrato and a castratola. Do you remember that? Oh, that wasn't Ilonis the castratola? Who remembers? Anybody remember? Alright. Call arayus mekanin. So you can warn about like any arayus. Right? So a husband can warn his wife, like, I don't want you to be secluded with your dad. Chutz min hakohen u'mishenu ish. The exceptions being, right, you wouldn't warn your wife, like, don't be with like your little brother who's like 5. That you don't need to do. And also somebody who's not a man. Apparently, the Gemara is going to explain what that means. And in the following examples, Bezdin does the kinoi for them. If her husband becomes a cheresh, or nishtat, or a shote, or if he was in jail and he couldn't warn her, and Bezdin's like, yo, what's the deal? This guy's in jail and his wife is secluding herself with Ploni. So they can warn her against secluding herself with Ploni. Now they can't, give her. She can't drink the bitter waters on account of this warning, because that you need a husband for. But at least that she can't get her ksuba if she's been kind of warned and is continuing. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, whereas Rabbi Yossi says, look, even if the Bezdin does the warning and he's in jail, when he gets out of jail, based on that warning of the Bezdin, she can at that point drink the Sotah water. Now, Mishtu de Shasya Konui Makne Lo. So says the Gemara, look, the Mishnah had said that by Narusa or by Shomeres Yovim, she doesn't drink the bitter waters. So now the Gemara infers, sure, she doesn't drink the bitter waters, but there could still be a kinui, right? There could still be a warning. So, because the Pasuk says Ve'amarta, and from the word Ve'amarta we include, it's an inclusive word to include in Arusa and the Shomeres Yovim, that at least there's a warning by the Arusa and the Shomeres Yovim. What time is it? Is it getting late? What time is it? It's 4 o'clock. Not late at all. Plenty of time. Alright. Weiter. Okay. Masnisa Moni, who is the author of our Mishnah? Whose opinion would be that in Arusa and the Shomeres Yovim do not drink the bitter waters? So Rabbi Yonasan and for the Gemara, our Mishnah is Take Rabbi Yonasan. The Tanya we're going to advise it Tachas Ishech that the Pasuk says by Sotah Tachas Ishech, right, by your husband. So Prat La Arusa, to the exclusion of somebody who's engaged. If she's engaged, then they're not married, and therefore Sotah bitter waters don't apply. Yochel Shani Motzi Af Shomeres Yovim. Is it possible that also a Shomeres Yovim, right? If she's awaiting Yibum, then also she would not drink the bitter waters. Tamlomer Ish Ish. No, it says Ish Ish, which is inclusive to include a Shomeres Yovim. Rabbi Yoshia. That's Rabbi Yoshia's opinion. So Rabbi Yoshia says that while a Arusa does not drink the bitter waters, a Shomeres Yovim does drink the bitter waters. Rabbi Yonasan Omer says, Rabbi Yonasan, Tachas Ishech, when it says 10 psukim later, Tachas Ishech, Prat the Shomeres Yovim. So now this is Rabbi Yonasan's opinion. He says, Tachas Ishech, your husband. Wait, no, this is the first pasuk. When it says Tachas Ishech, the first pasuk says Tachas Ishech. It's right, they have to be married, to the exclusion of Prat the Shomeres Yovim, to the exclusion of a Shomeres Yovim. Where am I? Yes, okay. So now if it says the Gemara, Otzi Shomeres Yovim, for the Otzi Arusa, is it possible that maybe, okay, so Shomeres Yovim does not drink the bitter waters, but maybe an Arusa does drink the bitter waters? Tamulomer Asher Tista Isha Tachas Isha. So 10 psukim later it says, Asher Tista, right at the end of the parsha it says, Asher Tista Isha Tachas Isha, her husband, and therefore, Prada Arusa, to the exclusion of in Arusa as well, that according to Yonasan, both in Arusa and Shomeres Yovim do not drink the bitter waters. Now, in the first pasuk of Tachas Ishech, so initially Rabbi Yoshia had said that Tachas Ishech to the exclusion of, right, meaning they have to be married to the exclusion of an Arusa. Arusa is not considered married, but we didn't exclude Shomeres Yovim, right? So Rabbi Yoshia seems to assume that a Shomeres Yovim would be, or at least is not excluded from Tachas Ishech, right? And Rabbi Yonasan excluded Shomeres Yovim from Tachas Ishech, which would mean that he would say Tachas Ishech would not exclude Arusa, right? So for some reason, Rabbi Yoshia assumes that Shomeres Yovim is more similar to Tachas Ishech, right, a husband, whereas Rabbi Yonasan assumes that in Arusa is closer to a husband. So how come? So Mar Alimale Arusa. So Rabbi Yonasan assumes, right? Rabbi Yonasan excludes Shomeres Yovim from Tachas Ishech, from your husband, to the exclusion of Shomeres Yovim, but Arusa would not be excluded because Arusa is more husband-like, because the Kiddush Edidei, after all, by Arusa he is Mekadesher, V'soklin al Yado, and if they, if Nara Morasa has an affair with somebody, skila, right? So that's pretty intense. So therefore, Yonasan says that Ishech is taka, right? Taka Arusa is more similar to a husband. Umar Alimale Shemeres Yavim, whereas Rabbi Yoshia assumes that a Shemeres Yavim is more husband-like to Lo Mechzer Mesir L'chuppah, because after all, Shemeres Yavim is like, they're like pretty much almost married. All they have to do is have bia, right? No chuppah necessary, or kiddushin. Although, of course, we say that there's mimer. Friends, remember Sotah Yevamos, bring back fond memories. Al Kaponim. So Al Kaponim. Oh, so okay. So two different ways to look at it. Right? You could say that maybe Arusa is more husband-like. You could say maybe Shemeres Yavim is more husband-like. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yonasan, hay ish ish my ovidlei, ho. So what does Rabbi Yonasan do with ish ish? Rabbi Yonasan says that from tachas ishech we exclude a shomer's yavam, and from tachas isha we exclude an arusa. Well, then what does he do with the pasuk of ish ish, which Rabbi Yossi used to include a shomer's yavam? So Rabbi Yonasan, hay ish ish my ovidlei. What does he do with that pasuk? Mi boilei lerabos eishes cherish ve'eishes shote ve'eishes shi'amum. Alright? It comes to include the wife of a deaf fellow, the wife of a silly fellow, and the wife of a bored fellow. I don't know, I don't have the article here, so I wasn't able to look it up. I don't know, a shi'am, I don't know, what's mishu'amam, isn't that misha'amemli, it's boring. So what, it's like a boring, the wife of like some boring dude? Okay. I hope that friends, am I a boring dude? Probably. Today I am. Friends, what do you want me to tell you? I don't have so many options right now. I'm in my office right now. It's still yontif around here, so this is like, you gotta just find a quiet enough place to record, and this is the space I found, but, we'll see. Maybe Sunday I might also be back here. We'll see, I don't know. But at some point I'll get back to my very exciting, dynamic, animated self. Let's go weiter. So Rabbi Yoshia, tachas isha, my ovidei. What does Rabbi Yoshia do with the pasuk of tachas isha? Because he learns from tachas ishech, to exclude a arusa, and from ish ish to include a shemeres yavam. So what does he do with the pasuk of tachas isha? So my ovidei mi boilei lahakish isha ish leisha v'isha leish. He uses tachas isha to compare ish to isha and isha to ish. Apparently, we're going to learn all about that in another few days on Daf Chav Zayin. Okay. So now for the Gemara. Friends, you ready for the Gemara's kasha? So Ella, what time is it? Okay. Should I? Okay, excuse me, 1 second. So now for the Gemara, Ella time d'chsive hanikroi halavochi havamina arusa shasya So for the Gemara, 1 second. The Mishnah had said that an arusa does not drink the bitter waters. And we're bringing all sorts of psukim to prove it. But if we didn't have these psukim, what? I would have thought that Narusa does drink the bitter waters. Veha, ki also Rabbi Acha, Bar Chanina, midaroimo, also v'aisimis masnisa biyadei. But Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina came from the south. What's in the south? The west, of course, was Eretz Yisrael. What in the world was the south? What's south of Babylonia? What's south? Let's see. Babylonia is what? It's Iraq. Let's see. What's south of, so Google Maps. I'm in Eretz Yisrael. Zoom out. Iraq, where are you? Iraq is to the east. So Israel's to the west. So, Saudi Arabia? Interesting. So who came? Rav Acha Bar Chanina came, he came from like Saudi Arabia or something? Let's see, so Baghdad is like in the middle of Iraq. And where's like Fallujah? Fallujah is Pupindisa. Where's Fallujah, okay. Al-Fallujah. I assume that's the same thing as Fallujah, which is Pumpendisa. So what's ich weiß nicht. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it came from Saudi Arabia. Or, alright. Maybe it came from Madagascar. Depends how far south. Alright, let's go weiter. Where am I? So, Al Kaponim. So, okay, so he came from the south, and V'aisi Masnisa Biyode, and he brought with him Epis a Braise. Some people bring gummy worms he brought a brisa. So mibalade ishech mishekodno shchivas baal leboil v'leshekodno shchivas boil lebaal. Ho. That when it says by Sotah mibalade ishech, that the fellow, that she slept with another fellow aside from her husband, implies that she had already slept with her husband. But if it's an arusa, doesn't that mean that they haven't had bia yet? Ho. So Amar Barcham Mishkachas lo kigon sheba leo arus beveis avia. To which the Gemara says, well, not necessarily. I mean, just because they're engaged, maybe they did have bia. After all, I mean, you could be mekadesh. There's kedusha bia, but I think we don't do that really. But okay, look, it's not crazy to think that maybe they had bia. Okay, the kavasa gabi shomeres yovam kigon sheba leo yovam beveis chamia, but now fact the Gemara. Well, if that's the case, so then the equivalent by Shomeres Yavam would also be that it could be a situation where the Shomeres Yavam and the Yavam had bia before, prior to doing Yibum. To which the Gemara says, "Shomeres Yavam karisla ishtam ayisa here." Friends, you got the kasha? Meaning, if we're saying that. Meaning, the question is that in the case of Sotah, the husband would have had to have slept with her before the adulterer. Now, the question is, how could that be if they're only engaged? They haven't had bia yet. Well, not necessarily. Maybe they did. But once it's okay. But what about the fact that we also talk about Shomeres Yavam? So you're going to tell me that we're talking about a Shomeres Yavam where the Yavam slept with her before this other person? But if the Yavam slept with her, isn't that just Yibum? So they wouldn't be a Shomeres Yavam anymore. They would just be married. So the Amar Rav, because after all Rav says, Kana lako, that if they have bia, regardless of if it was l'shem znus, even if it wasn't l'shem Yibum, still, they would be married. So Kishmol the Amar, lo kana l'dvar mamun beparsha. Okay, no, it's like Shmuel who says that not necessarily, right? Just if they have bia, they're not necessarily considered married, right? If they have bia without the intention of doing yibum, they're not necessarily considered married. So if this is so, that Rav says that once they have bia, they're already considered married, which means that the Mishnah which talks about Shomeres Yavam not drinking, Shomeres Yavam in the context of Sotah, so that can't be like Rav, right? The Mishnah which we said is like Rabbi Yonasan, right? So Memele Rav is not saying like Rabbi Yonasan, he must be saying like Rabbi Yoshia, who says that only an arusa is excluded. But we're not talking about a Shomeres Yavam. And Shmuel, who says that they're not necessarily considered married if they have bia not with the intention of yibum. So then he would be like Rabbi Yonasan, who says that we're talking about both the arusa and the Shomeres Yavam in the context of Sotah. So say that Rav holds like Rabbi Yoshia, Shmuel Dam Rabbi Yonasan. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yonasan. Amalach Rav. Rav will say no. Ono Dami Afilu Rabbi Yonasan. I can say even according to Rabbi Yonasan, right? I Rav who say that they would be considered married. I can say even like according to Rabbi Yonasan, who's talking about arusa and Shomeres Yavam in the context of Sotah, because from the fact that we need these psukim to exclude Shomeres Yavam means that memele, it's because it's like I'm saying that they're considered married, and therefore I need a pasuk to exclude them. V'Shmuel Amar, it says Shmuel anu da'ami afilu l'Rabbi Yoshia. So Shmuel who says that they're not considered married could say even like Rabbi Yoshia who doesn't include Shomeres Yavam miditzich kar l'Rabuye, because from the fact that you need a pasuk to include Shomeres Yavam, so then memele michlal delav ishto hid klal must mean that they aren't actually considered married, like I Shmuel am saying. Friends, that was Daf Chav Daled Masechta Sotah. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.